Yes people, Ratzi here from DJKit, and it's just a quick video from me today because the very kind folks over at Native Instruments have sent me a brand new Traktor Kontrol S3 to have a little play with before the release date. So what I thought I would do is, rather than getting into the kind of ins and outs of the S3 with the Traktor DJ software, I thought I would compare it to its predecessors, which is the Traktor Kontrol S2 Mk3 and the Traktor Kontrol S4 Mk3. Now, as you can see, I've got all three controllers set up here so we can actually physically compare them to each other, but there are also some other comparisons when they're used within the software as well. Now, right, let's start with the deck controls. So the obvious kind of comparison here is this new S3 is a 4-channel controller like the S4, but the S2 is only 2. I mean, going by the sort of names and numbers, you would think that the S3 would be a 3-channel controller, but yeah, no, 4-channel controller like the S4, whereas the S2 is only 2 channels. So even though the S3 and the S4 have got 4-channel mixers on them, there is obviously only 2 actual decks for the controllers. So to access decks C and D in the S3 and the S4, you use the deck select here. So this goes from B to D, and this goes from A to C, and then it is the same on the S4 Mk3. The S2 Mk3 obviously doesn't have this function because it's only a 2-channel controller. Now, obviously, all of these controllers are built for Traktor's DJ software, but it is only the S2 and the S3 that you can use with Traktor's iOS app. So that means that you can use both of these controllers, the S2 Mk3 and the S3, with a phone or a tablet, whereas you can't do that with the S4 Mk3. However, I should say at the time that I've shot this video, on the S3, when you're using it with their Traktor's iOS app, you can only use 2 decks. So even though it is a 4-channel mixer here, you can only use 2 of the decks within the iOS software, but you can obviously access 4 decks when you're using Traktor on a laptop. So still looking around the deck section, as you can see, this new S3 has got the 8 pads for hot cues and samples, which the S2 and the S4 have as well. The only real difference here is that the S4 has got this screen. So in this little display screen here, you can see track information like loop size, mini waveform, and you can also use it for Traktor's stems function. All 3 controllers as well have got this navigation function, which basically takes you away from having to be on your laptop, so you can select your songs, you can add them to your favorites, playlists and stuff like that up here. And also down here, something to mention is that on the S3, the pitch fader is slightly bigger than on the S2, but slightly smaller than the S4, which is kind of the same all the way through with these controllers. So obviously the S4 is physically bigger than the S3, and the S3 is physically bigger than the S2 in kind of all of its layout, apart from, I should say, the jog wheels, which are all the same size. Speaking of the jog wheels though, it is only the Kontrol S4 Mk3 that has got the motorized jog wheels which spin like a platter, and the haptic drive. If you want to know more about the haptic drive and stuff on the S4, I'll put the link to the S4 Mk3 video in the comments of this one so you can learn about that. But basically you can kind of feel your cue points, and it's quite a weird sensation, but it's a really, really clever thing from Native Instruments. So all 3 of these controllers have got these transport modes where you've got reverse and flex, and also the grid and the jog buttons here. But like I said before, the S4 has this extra button here which controls the haptic drive mode. Then obviously you've got your cue and your play buttons in the same position, and Traktor, like most other controllers now, do an asymmetrical controller, so the cue and the play buttons are always in the bottom left hand corner. So let's move on to look at the mixer sections now. So like I said before, the obvious difference is that the S2 only has 2 channels of the mixer, whereas this S3 and the S4 have got 4 channels. All 3 of these controllers though do have the same layout of the mixer, in that you've got the gain at the top, 3-band EQ, and then you've got these mixer effects here, which you've got the choice of up to 4, which you can customize within Traktor as well. So speaking about effects, as you can see, the S4 has got control of Traktor effects up here above the jog wheel. So you've got FX1 and FX2 here, which is missing from the S3 and the S2. So if you want to control the effects within the Traktor software, this means that you'll have to get an external effects controller, like the Native Instruments, they do an X1 controller, or physically go into your laptop, use your mouse to click the effects and do it that kind of old school way. But yeah, the S4 has got controls for the effects within Traktor, but the S3 and the S2 do not. One of the differences though between the S2 and the S3 and the S4 is that the master is in the middle of the mixer section here, as well as the sample volume, and then this is your headphone volume and cue. On the S3 and the S4, these are located just to the right of the mixer here, which is more common to a kind of club standard layout of a mixer. Also, the S3 and the S4 have got LED lights to show your levels, your volume level, whereas the S2 doesn't have that. Another little difference between the S2 and the S3 and S4, the S3 and S4 have got the cue buttons for your headphones above each channel, whereas on the S2 they are in the middle of the two channels, just above this LED volume for the master, which obviously the S4 and the S3 have got as well, but like I said before, they have individual LED lights for the volume per channel, whereas the S2 doesn't. Also, the S4 has got crossfader controls along the front of the mixer section here, whereas the S3 and S2 don't have that function. So now then, let's talk about inputs and outputs on the 3 controllers. So this new S3 has one microphone input, which is an XLR on the front of the unit next to the headphones in and out. Just quickly, the headphones are, you've got the 2 option headphones of a 1/4 inch jack and the smaller headphone jack as well. But the thing with the microphone on this S3 controller is that you have to share it with the line input on channel D. It's worth saying as well that the line in is only, in fact, that a line in, so it doesn't take a phono in. So this means that you can't play turntables on this Traktor Kontrol S3. However, it does have a booth out, which the S2 doesn't. So the microphone on the S2 is only a 1/4 inch jack line in, and you control the volume via a gain knob on the back of the unit. Whereas the S4 has 2 microphone inputs, an XLR at the front and a 1/4 inch jack at the back, and each microphone has got a separate channel. So you've got one mic on C and one mic on D. The S4 as well has got the double headphone input, so it's got the 1/4 inch and the 3.5mm, whereas the S2 has only got the 3.5mm located at the front of the controller. So output wise now, the Kontrol S3 has got XLR and RCA outputs for the master, as well as booth output from the 1/4 inch jack. This is the same on the S4, whereas the S2 only has RCA outputs for master and no booth. So in terms of inputs, you know, the S3 kind of has a little bit more than the S2 does, but the real daddy here is the S4, as it's got 4 line or phono inputs on the back, which means you can use this in DVS mode with turntables. So to conclude, physical comparison between all 3 of these controllers. To be honest, if you've got the money, it would make sense to go for the S4. However, this new S3 obviously does work with iOS. So if you want a controller to use with a phone or a tablet on Traktor's iOS app, and the S2 is just a little bit too basic for you, the S3 is perfect. Obviously, like I said before, you can only use 2 channels in the app, but you can use the full 4 channels when you're using this with Traktor on a laptop. I would say that the S2 is a little bit more mobile if you're using it with the iOS app though, because it is USB powered, whereas the S3 needs to be plugged in to the mains, and so does the S4. As you would expect, the sound card in the S3 is better than the S2 though, so if you do have that little bit extra budget, I would be going for the S3. If you're not interested in using iOS, the S4 wins every time. So there you have it then, guys. I hope that that was helpful for all you Traktor users out there. People maybe considering which of these controllers to buy, or maybe if you've got the S2, you're considering upgrading to the S3, or, you know, maybe upgrading to the S4 even. Thanks very much for watching. As always, I'll catch you next time. Peace out.